Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. My name is Melissa Joy Dalton, and I'm your host and facilitator for Shimmerly's Professional Development Program for Facilitators in Education. It is my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar on advisory programs and connected consciousness curriculum. At Shimmerly, we are dedicated to fostering holistic development and preparing individuals to excel in an interconnected world. This aligns seamlessly with the topics that Jackie Scully will discuss today. Jackie's insights into advisory programs, as well as the concepts of connected consciousness, directly support our mission by emphasizing the development of core skills such as emotional intelligence, self awareness, and community engagement. These skills are crucial for nurturing well rounded, empathetic individuals who navigate diverse cultural and academic landscapes with confidence and responsibility. Jackie, who is an expert in education transformation, will guide you through practical applications of these concepts, demonstrating how they can create a supportive and enriching educational environment. Jackie, we're so excited to have you here with us today and hear your insight. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Melissa and Shiminli and Christopher and everyone who's been organizing this webinar for today. I am so excited to be here and speak with all of you. And I will have some parts of this presentation where you'll be engaging in the chat. So I look forward to getting your feedback and ideas. This is something that is near and dear to my heart. And when I first came across Shiminli, I was like, this is everything that I'm about, everything that I've been teaching and writing about. I published my book last year is all about this. So I feel very aligned, and I'm really excited to present advisory programs in general and my experience with them, and also this connected consciousness curriculum that I wrote about in my book, The Guided Teacher, that was published last year. So to get us started, just a little bit of background about me. So this is just something you can kind of read to yourself as well, but I am in the transition of becoming a professional development specialist. So this is right in line with the work I'll be getting into, but I have been an educator for almost 20 years. I'm a self-published author, a podcaster. My podcast is called The Teacher's Story, where I interview teachers and other people in education all over the world. I am a speaker. I've been on webinars before. I've also presented live at conferences here in the United States. I'm located in New Jersey, not too far from the Philadelphia region and New York City, and an education transformation leader. One of my goals is to really transform the education system by focusing on holistic education. And really, this is just the next first step, is to talk about advisory programs and how that could be a placement for this type of curriculum. So a little bit to get us started is I'm going to start with an intro. Okay, so this is where you can engage in the chat. And so I like to do a little quick write where you could just write in the chat. And this is a quote that I have in my book, and I present it actually right at the top before I go into my curriculum. And it's something I came across a couple years ago, and it really stuck with me. I have it up on my bulletin board. And the quote is, "Our greatest human adventure is the evolution of consciousness. We are in this life to enlarge the soul, liberate the spirit, and light up the brain," by Tom Robbins. So just take a minute or so to think about the quote, how you want to, analyze it. How do you think it connects to shifting the education system? So if you want to put your thoughts in the chat, and we can kind of just see our ideas come through, and then we'll move on to the next part.
Nothing in chat yet. I'm sure everyone is typing away.
And I'll wait a minute or so. And if we have anything in the chat, we can read that out loud. But also, I would offer over to Melissa if you have any ideas you want to share about this particular quote and ideas about shifting the education system as well.
Well, as we all know, time and technology and people change and evolve. And I just love how this quote taps into the consciousness of people, right? And think about how it impacts us deeply internally to make that impact on the world. So I really like this quote. And it also is inspiring because it's lighting you up with different ideas and infusing you with a different way of thinking about growing in education.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We do have some comments in chat. Uh, Innovation and learning is the key to success, as well as it is kind of related to what we teachers do every day when enlightening our students into open-minded individuals.
Absolutely. I agree. Thank you so much. And feel free to keep sharing. I'm going to keep moving us along so that we are going to make sure we have time for Q&A at the end as well. But yes, it just resonated with, I think, this new era that we're living in. You know, we're about a quarter way through the 21st century. We've been talking about 21st century skills since the year 2000. That's the year I graduated high school. And it's kind of, you know, we haven't moved the needle too much with like, what does that mean for 21st century learning? It's not just about technology. This is wonderful because we can connect with people all over the world, but I think it's really about the mindset and making sure that our children and teachers, everyone involved in the school community, is healthy, whole, supported, because we're humans first. We're not just people who do a bunch of different tasks and jobs. And anymore with the, you know, prevalence of AI, that could be taking a lot of those kind of roles where you're just doing a bunch of tasks. We really need to tap into like, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be connected? What does it mean to build community? So my next
We did
part.
have another comment, if you
Oh
don't
yeah.
mind. We had one
Yeah,
more
go for it.
comment. It was they are bragging that they're on a beach listening. I love it. That's my
Ooh, I
favorite
love
place.
that.
Um, we can move to exploring the inner life of the teacher and see the inner lives of our students is important too, where we can connect. I thought that was a beautiful statement.
That is beautiful. Yes, inner lives. I love that. And I think that connection between like the student and teacher and all of the adults and children in the community so that we can see ourselves as equals and not just top down, but that we're working in like an ecosystem, right, together and fostering that collaboration between like even like intergenerational, right, between adults and children, that we do this learning, we do this work together. And I think that's a beautiful statement. So thank you. And feel free, anyone else, if you want to share any questions or anything that pops up as I'm sharing. And Melissa, anytime if you want to pause and just bring that to our attention. Thank you so much.
You got it.
So before we get into the actual kind of like connected consciousness curriculum that I came up with and wrote in my book, I wanted to talk about advisory programs because I don't think it's everywhere. And it's something that I have experienced for the last 11 years in two different schools in the United States. And I'm going to focus on the school that I was just last in is Morristown Friends School. It's a Quaker school in New Jersey. But I first want to talk about advisory programs in general, because I think that's the first place that we could maybe possibly think about this type of curriculum. I will talk about how it can live in a lot of different other types of classes, a life skills program, in a way that's kind of
Mhm.
what an advisory program is in school. Often advisory programs are middle to high school. So I would say grades like 5, 6. So like starting at 10 years old all the way up to 12th grade, 18 years old. But for sure, you could definitely do an advisory program and this type of curriculum scaled down to those lower grades. So if you're thinking more like I work with like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, I think starting early to talk about consciousness and community and connection is what we would need to be doing so that it fosters that all the way through to adulthood. So I'm first going to just show you a link to, and I have a lot of resources at the end of the slideshow as well, that are even outside of what I will show you. But just to talk about advisory programs in general, And as I'm sharing this, feel free to look at questions 3 and 4 if you want to share anything in the chat that comes to mind as I'm sharing. And then I share also the program at my previous school. So how can we take this program a step further and have it be the catalyst for real change in the education system? Share in the chat if you like your experience with advisory programs or maybe life skills classes or things like that. Ideas for advisory programs and or what would you like to see as additional programming in your school so that we can generate ideas, because I believe part of this webinar is not just me presenting to you, but I really want to have this be a community because that's what we're talking about and sharing those ideas together. So this first resource, make sure we go on. Oh, doesn't seem to be advancing. Let's see. I wonder if I stopped coming out of this. Oh, sorry. Oh, there it is. Okay.
There it is.
There's just one of many different resources online where you can look up advisory programs. This one particularly looks at high school. That is most of my background. I have also taught and had advisory in middle school as well. But it talks about here, and I'm not going to go and read through this whole website, but just to give you some ideas, like what is an advisory, or it can be called a flex class. It is a specific period built into a school's master schedule that is not content specific. So that's very important. Instead, students and teachers are often use the advisory or flex to engage in academic. It could be like counseling, like working with the students on their class progress, doing like sessions where you're asking them about like their homework, if they need help with anything, not necessarily tutoring, but really being there as like a mentor. Social emotional, that's where we really want to see that thrive in that type of program. School-wide culture, so anything that's going on around the school that you want to talk about. And then there's a lot of other models. There's academic supports, social emotional supports, school culture building supports. And then there's lots of different options on this particular resource about ways to structure it. I have seen it done where it's once a week, where that was in the high school program I was in. I've also seen it done twice a week, and it's like hour blocks in the middle school. Middle school really likes to foster advisory program because we know that puberty, preteen age is definitely a time where having that social emotional connection is very important, but definitely all the way through. Having different cohorts, advisory with student choice. I had that at my previous school in Delaware, where students got to also choose the advisor, not necessarily would get exactly who they wanted, but they could actually have voice in who they wanted to connect with. So maybe if they already had established a relationship. This one says 1 period a week, so it can be that way. It could also be multiple periods a week. Okay. What makes an advisory successful? I'll just read a little bit about this and then we'll move on. It's important that any incorporation of a flex advisory period be done with clear and specific intent. Intent is important. All stakeholders should understand the purpose of advisory and how it's meant to be implemented. So that way we know why we're doing it. It doesn't feel just like a fluff or an extra class, or students see it as a study hall, because that can often come across. So I'm going to move back to the presentation where we were. And actually, I'll just leave it here because I'm going to click on this link. So my previous school in New Jersey is Morristown Friends School, and this is a Quaker school. Quakerism is part of the Protestant faith, so it is a religious school, but an advisory program could, of course, live in private, state, public school, charter school, even like homeschool if you wanted to create this type of program, and micro schools. And so I'm going to show you just a website where there's a couple videos that they will just talk a little bit about how they use it in the middle school, since I just showed you a source on the high school. So these are some of the colleagues that I worked with. And a big thing that they also talked about was partners in parenting. So a big part of the advisory program too is also fostering school community outside of the school, not just the people like the teachers, the staff, the administrators and students, but also parents. So I'm going to show this video. Jake Greenberg used to be in my department, so I just wanted to show a little bit about what they're going to say about this Partners in Parenting and Advisory, and hopefully the sound will work. And it's not clicking on now. Oh, okay. I guess we just have a little
There it
delay.
is.
Okay. And play.
The sound's
This,
not audible.
oh, the sound it doesn't work. Is there a setting
In your
to,
settings, yeah, if you go in you can share your computer sound.
okay, let's see. View clip.
And sharing options.
Advanced sharing options. No.
I was looking in there, usually under, no, let's go to more. Let's see.
If not, I could talk a little bit about what he says. I went to audio settings. Let's see.
It might not be in this version. Usually there's a box
Okay.
that says share the audio with this
Oh, yeah.
to share the sound, but I don't see it, the option.
Jackie, what you can do, you can disconnect this presentation, and while resharing the screen, you will get that option, share sound.
Okay, and what is that under?
Yeah.
Share my screen. It's under, when you go to share the screen, it'll ask you if you want to share the audio.
Oh, okay. Share my screen. Share computer sound. Okay.
There you go.
Stereo or mono? I'm not sure.
You can pick either. They'll both
Okay.
work.
Okay. Oh, you know what? It's not letting me because I'm on my husband's computer, so I think I need a password for that. So if it doesn't work, that's okay.
Got you. Okay.
So just to tell a little bit, let me see, there's some context here. So what the middle school program did is they do another part of advisory programs is, I'm going to actually go back since I'm just talking about it here. So sorry about the video not advancing. Okay. Let's present here. So what the middle school advisory did at Morristown Friends School is they actually partnered with parents and they did student-led conferences, which was awesome. So the students got to reflect, not just on their report card on their grades, but they actually had to talk about their progress. They had to talk about other skills that they were learning at school, like interpersonal skills, their emotional intelligence, the activities they were involved in. How are they seeing their part in the school culture? And they put it in the students' hands. I love that. And I think that's what we really want to foster is being able to see, like, what do the students see in their own growth and their own learning, and not necessarily just a parent and a teacher talking about grades on a report card. So I thought that was really a great way to make it, again, more holistic. So again, in the chat, before we move on to the curriculum that I came up with, if you want to answer either question or both questions, how can we take this program a step further and have it be the catalyst for real change in the education system? Share if you have an advisory program or you have ideas for a program like this at your school or any other additional programming. So if you want to take a couple minutes and share any ideas in the chat about advisory or programs like that, and this would also be great to be able to collaborate and share ideas together.
And while we wait for individuals to type into the chat, what are some of the benefits that you feel that the students and the parents receive from going through a program like this? Because I'm sure it impacts them in the school and outside of the school setting.
Yes, absolutely.
Nothing in chat just yet. We have one, coffee meets is one idea. We also have an advisory program. Oops, sorry, it went up. An advisory program that gives students opportunity to say what their passion is and how they can share and follow it inside or outside the school. Also find out their parents' passions. Another comment to share updates. Also, we have separate life skills curriculum and plan in place for students where things like financial literacy, banking, stitching, folding clothes, etc. Things are taught, to name a few. Love that one. Consistency and differentiated learning with real life experiences, as well as mentorship programs.
Love that.
Parent-led clubs.
I love all these ideas. It's fostering all the community. A lot of times parents feel very removed from the school. And at least here in America, it can cause some tension between families, parents, and the school and like teachers. And I think we need to have more partnership with that. And that's what I was hoping to show the video. It didn't quite work, but that will be a resource that is linked to not only on that slide, but at the end. And so if that's something that you want to look more into and on your own can watch the series of videos on how they did the partners with parents program. It's a really great idea. But yes, I love the idea of mentorship programs, parent-led clubs. The mentorship program is something I'm going to talk about that's kind of like the end result of this connected consciousness curriculum.
We have one more that came in. Parents getting involved for conducting sessions for teachers and students. That is an idea. I love it.
Yeah, that's great. Parents really do want to be involved. I think they want to be invited in to the school community, into the classroom, and not just in the lower grades. Sometimes you see that when kids are younger, parents feel like maybe I'm like a helper or I can do something that's like just assisting the teacher, but not just assisting the teacher, but really inviting them in to be part of the learning process all the way through the secondary level. I think that would be wonderful. These are great ideas.
And that's all we have in chat. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Those are just great recommendations.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to move on to the curriculum. Okay. So I first wanted to start with Shimonlee's core skills, because when I came across these core skills, immediately I thought, wow, this is connected exactly to what I see in advisory programs and what I'd like to see in a more robust advisory program, and with this curriculum that I wrote about in my book, The Guided Teacher. So motivation and exploration, critical thinking, we definitely need to foster that in a world that's very complex and changing rapidly. Creativity and innovation. I think creativity, you see it in a lot of new innovative schools, but it's kind of lost its magic in schools, and students just feel like they're doing a bunch of different tasks. Teamwork and communication, self-awareness and adaptability. I love the word adaptability. Again, in a very complex world, moving rapidly, changing rapidly, we need to be adaptable. Emotional intelligence. I also have a psychology background and taught AP psychology for 11 years. So EQ is something I talk about all the time. And I often say this is more essential than your IQ, because it's really a foundation of everything that you will do in the real world, how you work with people, how you build relationships. And global citizenship. My background's also in the social sciences and taught history for almost 20 years. So that's definitely important to me as well. So just some things about my curriculum, and then I'll show you in a link in the next slide a little bit more detail about it. So when I first came up with this, I was thinking, coming out of the pandemic, we felt like we wasted or we lost a lot of time, and that the students lost a lot of learning. And what I started to see, at least in my area and in America, and talking to many teachers on my podcast, The Teacher Story, there was more on their plates, students and teachers. We were doing too much cognitive overload. So my first pillar when I wanted to create a curriculum for an advisory program is simplicity. It doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be busy. But if we start with something simple, like the foundation of like, what is consciousness? And I talk about consciousness in my psychology class. So this is very much grounded in science. It's not just like people might hear it and think, is this spirituality? Is that what we're bringing into schools? Very much can be tied to that in any perspective you have, but it is also very much grounded in science. And it is a core foundational part of psychology. So I think just starting with that, I thought simplicity, self-awareness goes right into the core skill. Who am I? What are my gifts and talents? What are the things that I want to do in this world? Community and connection, building those relationships. I also thought about nature. I think we're spending a lot of time on, again, technology is a beautiful thing. Look at what we're doing today. But then we lose touch with being outdoors, outside, getting kids playing, even up until they're 18, and really being able to maybe utilize space in a different way in the school day, whether that is going outside for class or taking those like field trips or other things to really connect outside of the classroom to other environments, creating space, using space in a different way in your classroom and school, curiosity, asking lots of questions, thinking about how do we explore the world? How do we explore ourselves, other people, coming from a place of like, I want to know more about this. I'm curious instead of like, you're different. I don't know about you. So I don't like that. I'm going to go over here, right? We have a lot of division in the world. And I think in order to really bring unity back into students' lives, but also adults' lives, is to be curious and ask a lot of questions and want to embrace the diversity, and not just diversity in our identity of what we look like, but there's diversity in thought, right? Our perspectives, neurodivergency, different ways of processing information and really embracing that. And then entrepreneurial. I would love to see kids, teens creating their own projects that then they could actually bring to the world and say, I have a business, I have a nonprofit, I have a service project, and there's people now in my community that are part of it, right? And they have that ownership and agency before they even graduate. So that kids and teens don't think like, oh, I can do all of this when I'm an adult. No, you can do it now. And you can foster, making mistakes and, how do you go back to the drawing board? By the time you're 18, you can have a sense of confidence with really, wanting to maybe start your own business or start your own nonprofit. And then leading to mentorship. So then a older teenager, maybe a junior or senior in high school, 11th grade, 12th grade, could be mentoring the 9th grader or mentoring the middle school students and bringing them under their wing and saying, hey, this is what I've been doing. I want to kind of tutor or mentor you in that. So that's really the pillars of the program. The skills right there kind of go along with it. And then how I broke this up is into 6 units. And in my curriculum, that I'll show you the link, it's more detailed with like specific questions, kind of the time frame of it. This is not meant to be a one size fits all. So it's meant to be expansive in the way that you can put it into an advisory class. You could also put it in a psychology class. You could put it in a life skills curriculum that you weave throughout the school year in various like time, different ways that you want to do it. So you could do this where it's once a week in that advisory program, or it's in a semester psychology class, and that's what you're working on. So there's flexibility in kind of the way that you want to roll this out. So how I start is basics of consciousness, maybe bringing in some of that psychology and talking about what does it mean to be conscious? What does it mean to go in different states of consciousness? Like when we settle our brain and our nervous system, and that can look like meditation, but it could also look like going for a walk in nature. It can look like drawing. It could look like listening to music. We're teaching children to calm their nervous system and calm their brain and all the chatter in their brain so that they can really become aware, self-aware of like what's actually, part of their life. And that's actually where you get ideas, you feel creative. So that's kind of like the first part. It's like, just what is this? Like, I think taking the maybe woo-woo or like, is this spiritual out of just the word consciousness, because many people might think that and say that, no, this is actually grounded in science and part of psychology and part of the way our brain works. Unit 2 would be self-awareness. This is where I would do like a lot of strength finding surveys, which you can find online. And that is where kids and adults alike can tap into their own strengths and see what they are capable of. And that doesn't mean you don't work on things that are, your areas of improvement, but that you start with your strengths. Because if you start with building that confidence, it is easier to go back to the drawing board, or when you make mistakes or you don't do well, instead of seeing failure as a bad thing, you see it as it's part of the experiment of life. It's part of learning. So the self-awareness is really like building that confidence and strength so that when those challenges arise, because next we're going to get into relationships, they have something to go back to. Unit 3, building relationships. I'm going to show you an activity that could really strengthen trust and communication and active listening with interpersonal skills. Unit 4, bringing them outside. Take them outside the school. Get in touch with nature, do experiential learning, hands-on activities, maybe ropes courses, things that they are doing like teamwork exercises, but get out of the building, right? Really start to connect with the world. Through that, they might start to then get ideas about service. So what is your service? Because I believe that if people see that they can give service to their community, they find purpose. That doesn't mean that that's going to be their career or their path. But when you serve your community, so this would look like service projects that maybe students can choose from. You give them a list of different things they can do in their local community or online, or run fundraisers online. And then they can choose what they want to do that calls to their, own self. And that gives them the sense of agency. It gives them a sense of purpose. And this then goes directly into aligned action. Now that you've done all of these steps, you are self-aware, you're building relationships, you're getting out of the school, you know how to give back to your community. What do you want to do now? What is your passion project? Do you want to build a business? Do you want to do a nonprofit? Do you want to build a foundation? Do you want to do something online or in person? So it's scaffolding. We know that as teachers, like one thing leads into the next. And you give this whole scope to students early on. So this might be something you could do in maybe a year in the high school. But in middle school, maybe this is throughout those 3 or 4 grades, right? And you do like a little bit at a time. So it can be changed at any time in different ways. Okay, so a specific exercise that I'm going to show you is directly connected to Shimon-Lee's core skills: emotional intelligence, self-awareness and adaptability, and communication. And this is what I call a light and shadow exercise, which might, again, sound kind of out there. But really, it's looking at any singular memory, situation, local or world issues, which, it's important to look at things in a critical way. So actually critical thinking can be part of this, and look at the things that are positive, negative, but blend it so that there's balance in your perspective. We're in a world that is very polarized. We're either on this side or this side. We swing from left to right, up and down. We are spun around in social media, and it can be very difficult to find ourselves feeling balanced and feeling grounded. So this is an exercise to help children and teens to find some balance in their perspective while also building relationship and building trust by sharing something that could be pretty either vulnerable or just something that is personal to them with a peer. And this is something that I would definitely model. Like I would do this with another teacher and do something light to start with. And like, again, little kids to middle school to high school, you can talk about like from, I, didn't do so well on this homework assignment, a light and shadow exercise, to I had a really rough relationship with this friend and we had to like not be friends anymore. And that gets a little bit more vulnerable and serious, right? As you move into middle school and high school. High school, it's like I got rejected from the top colleges I want to go into. Or, my parents are putting all this pressure on me to go to these certain schools or get into these certain majors. And I don't know if I want to do that. And then you're getting really like, this is getting, more heavy. So you take it and you can build it from something very simple and light to a more pretty like heavier topic. So let me come out of this and click on, and I'm just going to show it to you, and then we'll have you engage in the chat again. Okay, so this is the whole document of my curriculum. I have all of what I've shared with skills and everything. This is a little bit more detailed about the units, but like I mentioned, it could be a semester class if you are in like a secondary level educational program, psychology, theology, life skills, or it could be advisory, which is really where I'm kind of gearing it towards. And this specific lesson is going to really connect with interpersonal skills and emotional intelligence, and it's a partner activity. So what I would start with students is I would open up with a quick write. I think it's always good to get kids writing before they start anything, just getting your ideas down in like a journal or notebook. Why is it important to hold space for someone and listen to their story? This is Ari starting to talk about like, why do we even want to connect with people that are different than us, right? What can be difficult about sharing your story and listening to someone without interrupting? We know even adults do this, but teenagers and kids, it could be very hard to actually, have active listening. They want to just jump in and say like what they want to say or ask more questions. So this is purposeful in the way that they have to actually be quiet and listen to someone share something, and they cannot ask a question until they're done sharing. So that's all in the directions. What do you think you can gain from sharing your story and listening to someone's story? So then they start with that quick write. We talk about what is light, what is shadow. I go over kind of like a brief definition. Something that is light invokes a positive feeling, right? Something that's happy, it feels good, right? Something that's shadow can invoke a difficult feeling, maybe a problem you have to solve, an insecurity that you have. You didn't do so well on a test or a homework assignment. You feel like you let down a friend, right? Give examples of like things that are going to relate to that stage of development. So you know how to talk to little kids, if that's who you teach, you know how to talk to middle school, if that's who you teach, or high school. So you can come up with your own real life examples to help students see, oh, okay, that's what this means. Directions, you would have a partner with one person and you would share one happy memory and one difficult memory. And again, you can give examples that it is developmentally appropriate for that particular age group. So again, if I was working with middle school, it may have to do with like, my friend hurt my feelings, right? Kind of thing. The relationships are big and friendships and trying to navigate that is huge in middle school. And they really are yearning for these types of lessons on building healthy relationships. High school though too, but as the upper grades go, maybe more of that decision making of what do I want to do after high school? Like, who do I want to be? Where do I want to go to school? Or do I want to jump into a field right away? So you give some examples. You will practice active listening and holding space for someone. You will not interrupt while your partner is sharing and need to ask specific questions and give feedback after your partner shares. So share a little story. It might take like a minute or two, and then the partner would then say, here's some questions I have, maybe just to get more detail. Here's some feedback. And I always say to give positive feedback, give some, perspective, but also to like thank them for sharing. So there's a lot of modeling from the teacher of this is how we give feedback to someone that has shared something that's it could be personal to them or just something that they really want to work through. And then they would write a reflection. Each student would write their own reflection. So this could be part of actually then, this is for the student to then give to the advisor or teacher, and then you can actually give more, maybe some thorough feedback on that. So then you're practicing your reflective writing skills as well. And then this is just the task in more detail. The reason sitting back to back, and you could do this in various ways, this is nothing held in stone, but the idea is you are really listening and you're not like worrying about eye contact or looking at them while you're listening to the story, but you're really listening and even like closing your eyes and visualizing what they're telling you so that you can fully be present. And then as you share feedback, they do turn and face each other because that's important too. I think also practice eye contact. A lot of teenagers today, at least in my experience, it's very hard to like want to get into a conversation and make really direct eye contact. So that could be an important thing to practice. Yeah, and then they just reflect on their experience. And it's more about not just what they shared as far as the memory or the situation. It doesn't have to be a memory. It could also be like, this is happening to me right now, or this is happening in the current events. And, you know, I got these perspectives about it. I'm just going to click out of here. Sorry, before I continue, I'll go back to those questions. Move this. Okay. Oh, just trying to move this, the PDF over, I guess. Okay, there we go. So, yeah, students can, you know, be able to really learn how to talk to one another and communicate. So communication is huge here. Adaptability, because you have to be adaptable when you might be listening to someone's story or a perspective, and maybe it's like, oh, that's not what I think, or that's not what I believe, or I think something different. It doesn't have to necessarily go into like a political perspective when you're talking about older kids. But there is adaptability about, oh, I really need to listen to them and care about what they're saying and give, you know, some feedback. And so I would love to see this kind of like practice of communication. Well, it'd be great in all spaces, but it definitely can live in an advisory program. You can spend that time there and you can do this type of exercise multiple times. You can stretch it out. You can build up to something like this because I think you want to foster the class culture before you really maybe dive into that kind of sharing. So one thing I've done like early on in the school year before getting into something maybe a little bit more involved is just like do a turn and talk. And again, active listening. You can't say anything until the other student's done, but just share things that you're interested in, share things that you like, share things you're passionate about. And then the other student listens. And when you're done, they'll ask questions. And I always say, if they ask questions and you don't feel comfortable answering them, depending on what the question is, you don't have to. You could say, I respectfully, you know, say like, I don't want to just go in that direction or answer that question, and then give feedback. So you could start off actually very light in the beginning of the year to build that that culture. Another thing you could do is we did a circle activity, and the circle activity is where the whole advisory or class sits in a circle and you have like a talking stick or some kind of tactile object, and the person talking holds on to that. And when they're done sharing, they pass it on to the next person. And you have maybe a prompt on the board. And again, you can start light at the beginning of the year, like, what are your goals for this school year? Right? You know, what do you want to get out of this advisory or this class this year? And then you just go around and it starts to practice that active listening and community building. So your turn, if you want to, it doesn't have to be necessary memory, but if you want to write about a memory, situation, or current issue that would that what would be the light and shadow, or how does finding this light and shadow or this type of exercise in any given situation help us reframe and find balance and perspective? Or you could just say like, you know, I could see how this is tied to emotional intelligence in this way. How is it tied to self-awareness and adaptability? Or there's questions that you have or any other ideas that you have to foster any one of these core skills. Feel free to share any of that in the chat. And so we'll take some time for that.
Nothing in chat yet. This is a good exercise to connect students or teachers with students.
Yes, thank you
That's
so
one
much for the
comment that we
feedback.
received. Also, I think getting students to understand there is a shadow and light is very powerful as a pathway to having a balanced view and developing resilience.
Yeah, thank you so much. Resilience. I love that you also used that word. That is a huge, I think, skill that we could really tap into in the time that we're living in to be resilient. Yes, thank you.
This exercise can also, of course, I think it not only connects the students and the teachers, it connects the parents as well, because I
Mm,
think it'll give them an opportunity to fully understand their child's perspective, right? And
yeah,
their feelings.
yeah. I could imagine like an example being, oh, there's something else in the chat. I'll wait.
Yeah, sharing without being judged by
Mm,
the peers. I think that plays a very important, especially in teenagers.
yes. Yeah, they do often feel judged. So I think building community around that, I'm going to have someone listen to me and give me feedback. They feel
Mhm.
seen and heard. Yeah.
Exactly. Help students to think critically and relate and retain their learning well and collaborate with each other. Excellent point.
Yeah.
It helps in depth perception. Another
Yeah.
great point. And one of my students shared a personal story of his cooking experience and his vulnerability. This helped us connect with each other to break the ice and learn better for the entire academic year. That's an excellent
Oh,
share and example.
yes. I love that. I love that. When students can find a safe space, and I even say like a brave space to be able to be vulnerable and share something with the community, whether that's just the teacher or other students, that is special moment. That is really,
Yes.
they feel connected. And I think a lot of students, I know I see this at least in America, we see a lot of students falling through the cracks because they don't feel like anyone is listening to them. And that's a shame. So I think that is
It is.
a very great example. Thank you. Going back to the parent connection, I could see like a student doing this exercise in class and then say,
Mhm.
I don't know, something happens that week or the next week, and that child, that teenager gets a bad grade. And they go home and they're like, Mom and Dad, I studied so hard for this math test. I bring up math because math was my difficult subject. I am a humanities person. Doesn't mean we can challenge ourselves to, have all these skills, but a child coming home going, I did really bad on this math test. And I studied so hard. I think an initial reaction is like, I'm a failure. I'm bad, right?
Yes.
And there are maybe some
Mhm.
parents that would put that pressure on their child to say, like, why did you fail this test? What are you going to do now? You're going to fail your course. And then maybe you have to retake it. And then that whole snowball effect. And sometimes parents do it without realizing, and that impacts children a lot. So this could be a good exercise to say, you know what, Mom and Dad, I looked at this and I said, the shadow is, yeah, I didn't do so well. And I'm going to have to do better next time. I have to learn. But the light is that I realized I didn't go to my teacher and I need to ask some questions. Or I found a friend in my class who said, oh, I could help you with that. And now I have a study buddy. And then it becomes balanced. You don't throw out that, oh, well, I don't care about this bad grade, but you don't also go and do a place where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a failure, right? There's a balance there,
Mhm.
and there's problem solving there. And if a child could have that conversation with a parent, or the parent can then learn about this exercise and say, you know what, sweetheart, it's hard. I remember when I was a kid in school and I failed a test, or I really struggled in this class, and it really hurts, like when you study so hard. But let's look at the light in the situation and what we can do to do better next time. I mean, that's relationship building, right? Between the
Mhm.
child and parent. So I think even having, again, bringing the parents into the school, bringing them into the advisory program or some program that's fostering the EQ and the life skills and interpersonal skills, and have the parents be part of it so that those conversations continue when they go home, I think is great. Oh, love it.
Yes, it is. We have another comment as well. Acceptance of both sides of the coin and learning there are always two roads to choose from is more practical approach. Failure and success are part of lives that should be embraced.
Absolutely. Yes. Failure is a word I think that carries a lot of negative connotation, and that I want to challenge our amazing educators and people in schools across the world that we should embrace failure, because some of the most brilliant minds that have created the most amazing inventions, come up with like wonderful literature, wonderful ideas, they failed. Albert Einstein talks about that. He like failed out of school, and
Mhm.
brilliant mind, right? So when we give examples to our children about what failure looks like, and then it also is like a chance to keep working at your craft and getting better and better, instead of seeing it as just a negative thing, that also is bringing kind of that light and shadow into that as well.
That's a great point. I also think if we don't look at it as failures and we look at it as life lessons, because we need our
Mm,
lessons in order to grow. Our future self needs our lessons. I think if more people removed the word failure and said, you know what, that was a lesson. That was a
yeah,
lesson. I think they would retain and get more out of it. And that would allow them to see the light opposed to
yeah,
just the shadows, right?
yeah, I agree. Well, that is the last part of this presentation. Besides, I just have sources at the end. I don't know if there's anything else in the chat.
There is not. Would you like to open it up to questions?
Yeah, we could open to any questions. And then there is a series of links here as references. My website, my book, if you're interested in reading about my story that leads into then this curriculum at the end. The advisory programs, I shared that link from the beginning. The schools that we have, I do have to add the Morristown Friends School one to this. And then there's several other articles about advisory programs that if you're just interested to learn more about them, if you don't have something like that at your school, or maybe you want to see the different ways of doing this or how this curriculum could fit into it. Yeah, so questions, feel free to put into the chat.
Feel free to ask any question to Jackie, or comments or aha moments. I think we had some people get disconnected because they're coming back in. anyone have any questions for Jackie or comments? Have you an example of parents connecting with students and teachers in a program?
So the biggest example that I kind of touched on is the student conference program in the middle school that was at my last school, Morristown Friends. And they would invite the parents into that. Not only it was like parents coming into a conference, but it was student led, and the teachers would work with the parents. So there was a whole program. They had several advisory periods that they would meet with the students to reflect on their classes, to reflect on their relationships, their activities, school culture. So it was, again, more holistic, not just academic. And then they would share that with the parents so that everyone was kind of like primed and ready for this conference. And then the students have to talk and present. And the parents are there also to give like feedback or even ask questions. So it wasn't just like the teacher and the student and the parents just there like watching. It was really a whole community of that. The coffee chats that someone mentioned, we actually had at my school. We would bring parents into the school and they would meet to connect with each other and then also be able to, learn more about the curriculum and what's happening around the school. We still see a lot more parents more involved with the little kids in like lower school, I would say pre-K through fourth grade, fifth grade. And then it kind of like loses that a little bit. But we started to run some presentations in the evening time for parents to come into the school to, if we had a guest speaker or we wanted to highlight our different things we were doing in the departments. We had an intensive learning program that was a global and domestic trip program that parents would come in and learn about that. So there was a lot of inviting in for presentations. I think it would be great. One idea I have for schools is at the beginning of the year, we always hear of like back to school night, but it really is like parents going in and just listening to teachers talk about their class and what they're going to do. But before even maybe that, like actually having some kind of panel where you have each department and you have maybe other representatives of other programs in the school, and they're there to talk about the curriculum, talk about the activities, and get the parents' input. Have the parents ask questions, have the parents give ideas. I had a couple of parents come to me after back to school night to say, you have a really robust world history curriculum, and I see you focus on the Holocaust. I have a connection with a Holocaust guest speaker. I would love to introduce you. I ended up meeting with both the parent and this Holocaust guest speaker, and we built this lovely relationship. And then I had that guest speaker come to my class for 5 years before I left this school. And it was just a beautiful relationship. And I think that parent was just felt like brought into the community and being able to bring something that became a mainstay in the curriculum. So sometimes teachers can just invite the parent in or ask for parents to say like, you're an expert, right? What are you an expert in? Do you want to be a guest speaker to your class? That would be a really great idea too.
Excellent. Yes, I like that idea of parents being more involved in the curriculum at higher school. Excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
We did not have any other questions in the chat, I don't believe. Thank you, Jackie, so much for sharing your valuable expertise with us today. Your discussion on advisory programs and the connected consciousness curriculum really has underscored the importance of holistic education, which is really the heart of Shimon-Lee's mission. So by focusing on life skills and education, such as critical thinking, empathy, and global citizenship, we are not only preparing students for academic success, but also equipping them to make meaningful contributions to society. So for those that are interested in exploring these concepts further and integrating them into your educational practice, please visit our website at shimon-lee.com. We have a number of programs designed to support lifelong learning and personal growth. Thank you so much for all of you joining us today. We look forward to seeing you at our future events. I hope you have a fantastic day or evening. And again, Jackie, thank you. It was such a pleasure to spend this time with you today.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for
You're
coming
welcome.
and your feedback.
I know everyone is saying thank you. It's very interesting and included useful ideas. Thank you so much. Thank you for your inspiring session. Your expertise and passion made the discussion incredibly engaging and informative.
Thank you.
I truly appreciate the valuable insights you shared.
Thank you so much. This has been a great community. This is what it's about.
Excellent.
We share
This is what
together.
it's about. Yes, it is. Thank you, everyone.